Welcome everyone. The copper toned panel. This panel I painted a few days ago with acrylic copper paint, and there is a video that is in the Patreon that any member can see and watch how I did that. I'm painting on ampersand panel, which is new for me. I wanted to give it a try because I think it's so smooth that it would be a nice fit for the texture. Sometimes I like a really smooth surface, so I thought I'd give this a go. So this looks textured, but it's really smooth. And then I just took a little bit of white charcoal pencil and used that to create what I call a very simple grid. I just divide this 16 by 12 inch panel in half vertically and in half horizontally, and then I do it again on each side and on the top and the bottom of that middle line. So that's how that is done. You guys, the reference photo is available in the Patreon. So if you wanted to paint along with me, you could download the reference photo. If you don't have a copper tone panel, you can try painting along with me without it. It's possible to just paint on canvas, or you can just watch. Either way. So I'll go over what I have on my palette. On my palette, I have titanium white. This is Naples yellow pale or Naples yellow light, and it's really juicy, so it wants to slide down my vertical palette, but I'm gonna make him stay up here. This is Old Holland yellow brown, Sennelier vermilion, Chinese vermilion. This is Rembrandt transparent oxide brown. I have Old Holland Mars black, and this is an green. I can mix that from these colors here, but I like to use it, just have it ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some transparent oxide brown and I'm going to draw the image on my panel. So within my top grid, I like to find where does the top of the head live, and it's going to be coming in here. We're going to come down into this world. Just kind of getting a feel for the outline of where this head's going to live. Got pretty much the forehead running along right about here. Coming down, there's the eyebrow. Coming around, we get the eye on the far side, which when I say left or right, I'm referring to the left side of the picture. So left eye. Now I have a proportion tool, and I have on my tablet here, I can measure how far down from that horizontal line to get to that eyebrow. Yeah, that looks good. The nose curves in to about there, so that's looking good. And then I can see where the nose crosses that vertical line. I could eyeball it, but just to get precision and save time, I'll just put it in here now. And I'm going to come down to the bottom of the nose. It's going to be about here. So making sure you're not blocking your view. I had planned to have a moderator, and he got detained, guess you could say. So I am flying blind today. It's just me by myself. But I think we can handle it. So from that vertical line there, I can see the nostril wing edge right about here. And then there's a little shadow underneath. So I like to just go ahead and put in the shadow shapes as I find. So this comes up here. And I'm going to find the eyebrow and the eye socket on the right side. So it comes down to about here. I can see it lives pretty close to this curve of the nose that makes the eye socket on the far side here. Lives in this world. Just pushing it back a little bit to the right. Once we get this kind of drawn in here, I'm going to go back and put in these bright lights. She's got a bit of rim light, and I'm going to put that in so that we can not lose track of those bright points and use that as a comparative value structure. So there's some of this eye socket shadow here. Now I can measure how far from that vertical does that. Yep, that's looking good. And then the nose on this whole right side plane is pretty much in shadow. And I'm keeping this shadow transparent so we can see the copper coming through, and I have just enough transparent oxide brown on my brush to make note of that shadow shape. A little bit more of this, paying attention to the tilt of that shadow right through here. Okay, we see the muzzle area coming in here. Lives in this world. So that's the beauty of setting your reference material to be the exact size that you're going to be painting. This way I can measure with this proportion tool, and I can just do one-to-one measuring. I don't have to scale up or down. And I know it's the size that I'm painting because I measured with the proportion tool the size of the grid squares, and they match what I'm seeing on my iPad. Just getting a little of that mouth. Different oxide brown, I just kind of use it like if it were charcoal or something. Some people start portraits or paintings with vine charcoal, which is perfectly good to do. Now I feel like this mouth is sitting a little low in my box. Something is askew here. Let's lift it up. Way up. So see how easy this is to adjust? I just come underneath and scooch it up, and I can wipe away beyond that mouth, so it's all good. Sometimes when I'm talking, I get distracted. So let me just move this nose up a little bit. That came down a little far too, which is probably what pushed my nose down. I mean, pushed my mouth too far down. There we go. Just a little nudge. A nudge will do it. There we go. Okay, so now I want to just measure from the top of the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. We're good. Now, this opening of the mouth lives here. So the mouth's up here. I like that. And there's that inside edge right about here. So that inside edge lines up with the outside edge of the nostril from there to here. And then there's the upper lip. And you get a little bit of this rolling down. Get that bottom edge of the bottom lip. So the mouth's all living in this world here. And I'm just gonna shape this a little bit here, like that. So I just wiped my brush off. This way I can shape that bit of face. And the bottom lip, the bottom edge of the top lip comes out here. And I can take a dry, clean brush and use that to nudge the paint as well. Okay. All right. So the chin pushes in. It's the bottom edge of the bottom lip, curves around. And then we see this bright note of hair crossing in front like that. So a little wave of hair here. I like painting on this smooth surface. It's slippery, but I don't mind it. Setting up this little curl. There's a lot of copper notes in this reference. I thought it'd be so perfect with this copper toned background. So we get this bit of hair coming in here. I'm putting this in because it's helping me to see where the eye on the right side of the head lives. And I can just kind of clean that up a little bit. And this piece comes here. And we see the bangs coming across here. Keeping the dark notes of the hair transparent. I want the hair to have a lot of this copper showing through. So I like to just treat hair like 3 values. So I see a little bit of the dark notes, and then I get some mid values, and then we'll go in with a lighter note and put in the highlights. You can kind of push this paint around and let the copper toning be your mid value. This is coming down there. All right, so now I can see, just want to get that eyelid lash line placed. It's going to live here. I want to just nudge this eyebrow a little bit on top, pushing it down. Being mindful of the shape of it and how close it sits to that lash area. So there's some very nuanced things happening in that eye, but we'll get back to that. A bit more of this shadow shape here. I want the edges of this shadow shape to just diffuse and melt into the upper plane of the cheek on the right. And I want to keep this shadow shape transparent. I want it to feel like you can see through it. Okay. So when we get the light tones out, we'll be able to shape that mouth the rest of the way. I'm going to take a small dry brush and just push this Cupid's bow in here. And just lifting that edge up. So the dry brush is very helpful to manipulate the paint without me having to add more paint to the area. So I want that mouth edge to be super soft. Okay. Not too worried about that. We're going to put a light note on top of it so it'll turn where it needs to. All right, light shape here. Trying to find the shape of that bottom edge of the lip. And there's some teeth that are barely visible in there. And then this little dark edge. Right in there. Okay. I think that'll work. So let's find that edge of the hair scarf. It crosses my vertical here, comes up and around like that. Again, I'm going to push with this dry brush to get a light edge on top. There we go. And this is going to cross down here. You can see that. I'm also thinking how this is sitting on the head, and I'm trying to make it feel not such a perfect straight line. I need it to be curving slightly so that you get that organic feeling of it fitting on this head. Okay, Comes down. And goes back. So the back of the neck, that's going to be an important landmark. We want to mark that. It goes to here and it lives up here, a little higher right there. So there's the back of the neck. We get this little open triangle of light. And here. And we can connect that scarf like so. So I want this to be really rounded right here, so it feels like it's sitting on her head. There we go. Okay. There is a little shadow note here and here. And then this comes out. Looking for the darker bits around that little triangle of light. It's on her shoulder. I'm just going to feather this out until I'm ready to come back to it. Like that. Okay, I can see her hair coming down like this, crossing in front of the shoulder. So the shoulder is blocking us from some shadow here. Keeping that shadow transparent. And there's a little shadow note here. Okay. There's like a little braid. Her hair has this. Okay, and this piece of hair continues down. Okay. Let's get the back of that scarf. So there's this little circular shape here, comparing it to where that light, that little triangular light shape lives. And this all works in here. Coming down, it gets lighter as it goes down. It's kind of like when you're going into a cave. The further in, the darker. So this would be further in right here. And it's getting lighter as we're coming out of it. A little bit of this. When you don't have a lot of features showing in your portrait, then you have to be mindful and really like this, the scarf, to look really good, because they're, taking the place of the features. I love the lighting in this reference. That was a big part of why I chose it, so we could really examine some of this gorgeous backlight, rim light. So the light source is coming from the left side of the picture, and it is behind her slightly. So this comes up and goes in here. And we get a little bit of hair coming out in this world. I want to keep that transparent. I don't want anything too solid, opaque. And as the hair trails off to the back, it just gets really kind of wispy anyway. Okay, get a little of this. So we see the back of her. We have to get that shape right. Cover up that grid line. So this goes off the page into this world. It's a very dark line. Now, the shape kind of goes convex right here before getting a little more concave. Concave right here. Get that backwards. Convex right here. This pushes in, this curves out. There we go. That's one of the darkest darks in the reference, so we've nailed that, getting that in there. We can use that to compare our other values to it. I just want this to have the texture of hair. Just pulling some of that through. Okay. This head scarf, this little bottom edge of it lives here. And go. It's very soft though. I don't want that to be too dark. And goes in this direction. I can see where that crosses this vertical line here and works its way over to here. Okay, headscarf. There is this little darker shape here, like that. So this is getting blocked. The light doesn't hit it strongly. So it gets a little shadow. It's kind of a cool note. Okay. Just looking for that shape, and I can use this little rubber spatula to nudge things. Anywhere you want a straight edge, these guys, these little spatulas, work really well. Okay, let's see. This comes in here, rolls around into there. Okay, to that. There is a really dark note here. Might as well go ahead and put that in. This transparent oxide brown is the perfect color for her hair. I want it to go in the direction of the hairs, kind of wisping over and underneath her headscarf. So this is our May sketch portrait painting session that I do live each month. Let me know, you guys, in the chat if you want. What do you want to see next month? Do you want to see a actual face, like a face and head portrait? You want to see a specific body part, hands, eyes, mouth, nose, something like that? A portrait with hands? I don't know. What do you guys, just let me know. I'm happy to oblige. Some dark notes here. Okay. A little bit more of that. Kind of a braid coming down here. Hair piecey. You can see the flesh through it. So when I want the transparent oxide brown oil paint to go on more lightly, more transparent, and I just add a little bit more walnut oil. I have liquid walnut oil on my palette, and I also have walnut oil gel. That's this Rublev gel, and that works really good. There's my head in the way. To have it right there on the vertical palette. It just stays put. Okay, I think I'm okay. All right, let's fill in. Let me get a bigger brush. Let's fill this in. I like to paint hair in the direction that it is lying on the figure. This white charcoal, as far as grids go, is so easy to just paint over. It just melts away. So whenever I have a toned canvas, I like to use the white charcoal if I'm having a grid. Just kind of following the dark pattern here. Normally in my studio I have music going, but I wanted to, I didn't want to distract from the live stream, so no music today. Just have music in my head. So once I have some paint down, I can go in and out of it and manipulate it. It's kind of like watercolor, I imagine, how you can manipulate it, but you don't have a lot of time to manipulate watercolor, whereas with oil paint, I can manipulate this all day long, which is a good thing. Looking for some of that wispy shape there. Let's see. So this shoulder comes down, crosses here, and then we get her blouse. So the shoulder is here, blouse comes in front. And there's this nice little wrinkle about right here. And this goes down. A little bit in shadow back here. Going to lighten that up towards the front. Okay. So here's the shoulder. The back of the shoulder lives here. Don't let that be too skinny on you. I want to give her enough arm to look real. And then there's some shadow on the flesh behind her. Comes around to the back. Just gonna let that kind of disappear over here. I don't want to get too detailed, or I don't want too much information back there. And I'm softening this edge here. I don't want it to be perfectly hard, so I can just pull the brush through and I get some little broken edges there. All right, little note here. Getting that ruffle in. It comes, just kind of drawing it lightly because it's going to be very brightly lit. there. We got another few little trindles of hair. They're very wispy, so I keep kind of painting that little lock of hair in and then messing it up by pulling my brush through it. Like that. And we'll be doing that with some of that bright yellow. That Naples yellow pale will work really good for that. So on the other side of the face, we also have some hair coming through, just lightly kind of denoting it. Through that way. Let's see, a little bit up here. My thinking is I'm going to put this little bit of value here so that I have something to work on top of for that really strong light. I can get rid of that a little bit more. Getting rid of the grid lines. I don't need them anymore. Okay, good enough. All right, so we definitely want to keep track of this shoulder, the back of the arm and shoulder. And I want to get just a little more information here where this ruffle lives. All right, what I want to do is kind of set the tone next. Get some of this bright light in here. Let's do it with I like this brush. I'm going to clean this brush off with some walnut oil. I want to use it for this bright highlight. So I'm going to take some of this pure Naples yellow. Pale. It's pretty cold. I want to add just a little bit of Old Holland yellow brown to it. And maybe a touch more. We get that on the bridge of the nose. A little bit on the lashes right here. On the tip of the nose. See it up here in some of the hair bits. A little bit here. And we get a little more yellow on my brush, that yellow brown, and bring some of that in here. I don't want to go too crazy because I got to put the background in still. Following the chin line. Make that a little brighter right there. And we have a pretty strong golden light here. Just pull some of that down like that. And we get a bit of this wispy bright light hitting the hair down the swirl. Now I'm putting it in now. I'm going to be putting it in again when I work on the background. Bring a little transparent oxide brown through that, just to shape it and soften it. Get a little more yellow brown. So the highlights are strongest on the top planes of these curls. We also see a pretty strong note of that here on the shoulder. Moves straight down into the front of that ruffle. You don't want to have to mess with them too much. You get the idea. And then on the top of her head, that's closest to the light. So we get this strong note here, and then again here. And a little warmer note here. Okay. No highlights in the back really. There is, just get a little of this transparent oxide brown. This little note of light in this triangle, but it's quite a bit warmer and duller than those ones in the front. A little more red. Tiny crumb of that Chinese vermilion. That Chinese vermilion by Sennelier is really strong. So you only need the tiniest touch of it to affect your paint mixture. Go with a little transparent oxide brown, tiny crumb of red, a little more Old Holland, yeah. There we go. A little more transparent oxide brown. And then I see some of that back here on the back of her neck. Now, I didn't really plan on starting with the back of the neck, but alas, here I am. Now the flesh, I don't mind that being a little more opaque. Get some transparent brown, a little more red. But the shadows need to stay transparent. This flesh is moving towards the light, so I don't mind it getting a little more opaque. I think it needs a little touch more red. Okay. Let's get some yellow brown. Yeah, tiny bit more. Thinking about the value, so I want to get it a little darker. Keep it really warm. So transparent oxide brown, you can think of that as a dark red, a warm dark red. There we go. Now it's getting there. So I'm comparing that to these dark notes in the hair. Could get a little darker in the front of the shoulder there as well. Sometimes it's good to start with something like a shoulder that's not so perfectly, it's not right out there like on the face. Sometimes you can test out some of your values and your color mixtures on a shoulder, an area like not, less conspicuous. Some of this yellow, a little red. A little more yellow. So we had to get lighter as we come forward, but that's down red. That's better. Needs more. When you're looking at colors and you're putting them down, you're asking yourself, if the color doesn't appear correct to you, is it too red, too yellow, or too blue? And in that case, it was too red. I wanted it to be more yellow, so I just added a bit more yellow. And I like to feather out away from those opaque edges, so what I put down next will play nice with that shoulder. Okay. Now, I keep get a little more reddish orange color. Can turn down the saturation by bringing in a touch of that transparent oxide brown. I feel like it needed a little note up here of warmth. So saturation happens just before an area turns into the shadow. It's often called the terminator line, and that's an area where the light plane meets or butts up against the shadow plane. And where they connect and touch is where the saturation will live. So when you know to look for that, you can connect those planes with a little saturated note. Like that. A little bit in here. Now these colors would look completely different on a white toned panel. That's the beauty of this copper, is you can use it to your advantage. You can let some of that play into your flesh tones, especially in a situation like this where you have so much warmth. Her hair's kind of copper colored. Getting some dark notes here. I want to have this dark sort of triangular area in the composition. Building some more of those darks in. This is just straight transparent oxide brown. Just restating that braid. And even at this early stage, I'm still thinking about my mark making, because some of it will stand. Okay. I shall continue. So I just switched over from my reference to the full reference no grid. So now I can focus on the value structure, which I could have done along with you know, the drawing part. I could have gone into that structure more with the transparent oxide brown. You can do that, let it dry, and then come paint back on top of it with color. That way you're not having to figure out the color and the value structure at the same time. But I wanted to do this in one shot for y'all. I think that's working. It still stays pretty warm. And you want to think about how you can use saturated color to bring areas forward, like the shoulder, for instance, and how you can use muted colors or more grayed down colors to push things back. This little edge in front of her shoulder here. See if we can get it. That's it. There. Okay. So we need a shadow color back here. Transparent oxide brown. A little more red in there. And we're good. Yeah. Kind of get that in there. Too red. I could tell right away. The glass palette I have is helpful with that because I have a mid-value gray spray paint on the back of the glass palette. So it helps me see the value of things. And if I squint at it and it disappears, then I know it's about a mid 5, 6 value. Coming around. She's got this sort of core shadow right here. And then it changes, gets a little warmer back on the back. Making little color steps out of that shadow. And a little lighter as we come back here. If you can catch all the little nuances for describing the form. See, this comes at the, it lines up with just about the bottom of that little handkerchief curl, this light shape here. that. You get this light bit under the shadow, and then it starts getting darker again as we come back behind the back, behind the shoulder. A little darker right there. Find that shadow. I want to use transparent oxide brown by itself and come in, find that little shape. I'm going to pull some of that paint out, let the copper show it through inside here. Where it mixed with the flesh, it got a little opaque. So I'm just pulling it off, wiping it on a paper towel, kind of hollowing out this section of that shadow. A little darker up here. Using the transparent oxide brown. Find this little bit. And this rolls over the neck like that. Always imagine that you're a little ant crawling along the structure that you're building. That can be helpful when you're figuring out forms. Think if I were a little ant crawling along here, what would that be? What would that mean? Would it be going uphill, downhill? Would it be in a valley, in a cave, on a mountain? That kind of thing. So see how I'm letting there be a lot of breathing space within this hair. Pull some of that out. So anytime you have a dark area like this, you can go in and pull out paint to create light shapes. It gives us that beautiful copper look from underneath. Get into that back again. So coming out of here gets a little darker. Okay. A little bit of light right here. There's another shadow coming down her back. It's not as dark. It comes like that. Maybe one more. Just nudge this down. How are we doing? You guys still hanging in with me? Just trying to transition out of these shapes, these flesh notes. Need more of this yellow. Right through here. So I'm not super concerned with overpainting an edge. I can always find it again. Usually it makes a better note in the flesh to overpaint it. Get a little orangey note in here. That's good, right through here. Yeah. And here. And as it transitions back here, it's darker. And there's this little cool note. That makes a little green in there. With so much red, some of this ash green will cool us off. And then darken it with transparent oxide brown right here. Get a little cool note. It's sort of a halftone, and halftones occur in the light plane. It's where the light runs parallel to an area rather than perpendicular, which is what gives you your light plane. Yeah. So these get a little grayer, these halftone areas. They happen in the light planes. Remember that. Halftones live in the light planes. And they're more neutral or cooler than. They might not be cool compared to another color, but whatever you're working with, they will be grayer or cooler. Okay. See this reflecting light coming up here from probably the dress or little ruffle is reflecting in that world. I'm going to grab a little Mars black, a little ash green, a little Old Holland yellow brown. That's going to make me a little darker green note. Like that. And I can come in here. See some of that happening on this part of the ruffle too. Not quite that. Just experimenting. Something like that. Gets lighter as it comes forward. Oh, that's nice. A little darker as we go back here. Just want to get a little higher shadow note there. Let's do a little bit of this in here. There's some of this light kind of glowing and coming underneath the arm, right through here. Don't want it to be too bright. And the back of the arm also has that bit of that glow, like that. The back of the arm will be lighter in value than the underneath plane. Now let's go in here, get this turned down in value right through here. Thinking about mark making here. Got a little of this here. When I get a few layers of paint down, then I like to make my marks, kind of just put them down and leave them. All right. So I made that bright area, then I can work into it with some of this transparent oxide brown. A little bit more into this core shadow on this shoulder. Get a little note of flesh right through here. A little darker. I want to push her back out right here. All right, let me go ahead and get some of that ruffle down. A little more brown there. Yeah. All right, we're getting a little browner as we get in the middle of the arm coming down. A little brighter back here. Get some local tone down here, and then I can come back and put some of the folds. Okay. Get some of that same color up here in the scarf. Using that transparent oxide brown to dull down some of this yellow. I'm going to bring a little of that darker green into it as well. Especially back here. More brown with it. Scarf is diaphanous. We can see through it. It's nice to have that dark note right there. It'll help the lighter shape in front of it to stand out. A little light edge there. Comes up and over. Some of that. Right here we get a nice edge. Okay. A little green. More. Little fold there. A little fold here. Bring some black into this. Make it get darker and greener. And I'm gonna warm up the edge. Kind of blend that in there. A little warmer here. To balance the warm with the cool in this section. Gets really beautiful yellowish edge right here. It's warming up though. I'll just blend that into that little shadow that we drew earlier. There we go. Shadowy back there. Let's bring in some pure transparent oxide brown into it. Lighter bit here. Go warmer. Let's bring some yellow brown on it. Okay. I want to warm up a little bit in here. It's like some of the warmth of her hair is coming through. Notes right on top there. A little bit here. So as long as you get the value correct, these little notes will just sit and sing like they should there. Take some of this transparent oxide brown, just clean up my edge. Get a little smaller brush here. I'm going to pull some of that down. And I want to bring, again, some more warmth right into here. Just modeling the form, pushing and pulling some of this shadow where it needs to go. That went down a little too bright, so went right on top of it with the yellow brown. Took care of it. Now I'm really thinking about mark making. Get this more precise mark right here. Do it again. Like that. It's the under edge of that scarf. And then there's a bit more of that knot. Coming under here. Like that. Bring this shadow shape up a little higher. This rounder like that. Push that dark right in there. So it's easy to kind of push and drag that light colored paint since it's still wet. There, that looks like an open scarf bit. Little shadow note right here. Okay. I'm going to bring this shape in here and pull this bit out. Like that. Getting some warmth in here. Need a little more darker greenish note in here. And this is all a bit bright. Any area that has a lot of brightness, a lot of contrast is going to get a lot of attention. Do I want a lot of attention in this part of the scarf? I don't know. Probably not. I take this bigger brush. Go right through there. A little bit right here. There we go. That's the color I was looking for. And then this is darker here again. So if you look at this spot, it's dark, but it's not as dark as what's happening back here, or nowhere near as dark as what's happening there. So let those dark areas on each side of it guide you. Getting that little note of hair in there. Okay, working my way around to the face. I'll soften right there. Okay. Get a little drink of water. Let's see, how long have we been going? Coming up on 2 hours. Okay. Let's bring her home. Put in some of this flesh and then get some background going. My brushes are pretty much synthetic, sort of sable, not quite as soft as sable, but almost. They're pretty soft. I don't have any hog's hair stiff bristles because this is so slippery and smooth. I wanted to keep it smooth. So let's get into this forehead here. That is way too bright. Yeah, it's better. So this forehead color is pretty yellow. I think it could be a bit warmer though. Let's add some orange to that. Coming down into the glabella. That's definitely orange. Where the flesh of the forehead meets the hair, we want to make sure that stays soft. It's getting darker as it moves back into the hairline on the right. A little highlight there. Let's warm that up. It's a highlight, but it's nowhere near as bright as what's happening on that left edge of the face. So we have to keep that in check. A little nuance value adjustment here. Go push some bright notes there. A little Old Holland yellow brown and white. Okay, coming in here. Let me get some of this orange. There, maybe a bit browner. So, transparent oxide brown, a little red, a little Old Holland, yellow brown in this eye on the left. And then we'll work some of this highlight right into it. Now I'm not looking to copy that eye exactly. I'm looking to make an interesting shape in that area that just barely describes what this structure is. I just want enough information, but not too much. Okay, a little of that eyebrow here. I want to make sure they're close enough to each other. Push that down. A little light on top of it. Like that. Down. So we need more red and orange notes in this shadow. Get that right in here. Could be darker. More red, more yellow. Trying to keep this transparent, remember? Definitely more orange on the tip of the nose. Pretty. Right into this glabella. Oops. That's what happens when you don't know what's on your brush. Get a clean brush. Okay, I'm gonna bring some of that into this eye on the right side. This pretty kind of sherbety color. I want to see that nice and strong as we come out of that shadow right here. A little bit more right there and there. How about there? Whoops, didn't get it. Okay. Let's get some of that on the cheek. I'll put it in strong and then we'll come over it. Some of this flesh color. That was my test. Too light, too green. Let's go back over here. That's better. That cheek. Let's get some of this muzzle to help shape that. A little darker here. Corner of the mouth. Okay. A little bit more shadow here. And let's bring that in here. A little darker note right in here. And for the nostril, let me get a liner. This guy. This is a liner brush, so it gives me good control. I keep sticking my finger in the hair because I don't care about that. Hair can get manipulated, but I don't want to stick it in the shoulder. A maul stick would be helpful. I just don't tend to gravitate towards them for some reason. And then there's a little shadow underneath. Like that. There's that, and some of this warmth right here on the tip. There we go. Let's take some of the line here. Find the eyelid crease. And there is some lashes, but they're like very pale in color. Take me a minute here, I'll find the color I like. Something like that, and then we get this lighter note of flesh below it. Like that. Let's push this more round right here. Some flesh on top of it. A little highlight. A little bit here. Trying to make it look like those pale lashes that you'll see with redheads often. Kind of putting in a little bit of a darker edge over here where it goes under behind the hair. And then I can restate some of this eyebrow. The underneath edge of the eyebrow is dark. The top edge, not so much. In fact, there's some of this light coming through on top. Softening some of these transitions. A little brighter up here. I was thinking about how that forehead meets up with the hair. Through there. Okay. Let's get the front of that muzzle. The front is a little lighter in flesh. It's not too yellow, not too pink. A little darker. It's pretty red and dark coming right underneath that shadow. Put the shadow back in. So you can't be afraid to paint over something and then go find it again. It's all part of the process, right? Okay. Some of this flesh right here. And then it gets lighter right there. Kind of makes like a hook against all this bright highlight. There. And then we see this really beautiful highlight back here. Let's see. Spread that in here. Bring some of this pinky red tone in. Getting a little dark note of red for deep inside the mouth, right here. Okay, get this little line right there, and then this hook here. And this bit here. It comes out into that highlight a bit more. Like that. And we can brighten this up. Here is where it's the brightest. Let's bring some of that light right up under the lip. Okay. I'm holding like 5 brushes. Like which brush for the chin? We gotta come in here with something a little more neutral, a little darker. Yeah, like that. Okay. Let's just get a little warm light note right in the front where it would catch a little more light. And then a little bit of red underneath. Like that. And now we can jump in and get some of that background put in. Use this. All right. We're almost done, guys. You guys are awesome hanging in there. Let's grab some yellow brown, some ash green, a little black. That Mars black is a cool black, so it'll make a nice background color there. Add a little bit of the transparent oxide brown just to warm it a little bit. Make it a little more yellow brown. And I'm going to get a little darker version of that right here at the bottom of it. Okay, let's see. Yeah. There. So I thought this green would be nice. And again, I don't want it to be too opaque. Just kind of smudging that into the hair. Get a little lighter as we come up this way. More. So on the edge of the eye on the left side, we got to get right up next to that nose and eye. But don't worry. If you paint into an edge, we can go back and pull it out again. Doesn't have to be super perfect either. It's coming through. I want this to kind of be marbled, so some of that copper shows through, especially on the far edges. So I'm keeping more of the opaque notes for the background closer to the subject. I often enjoy putting in the background. It's rewarding to see it all kind of come together there. Going to marble some of that right up next to the forehead. Cut right in there. Just deciding how close do I want to get to this eye. Right there. And a little bit right there. I like to bring the background in at a different angle with some of the brush strokes. A little vignetting. Make it a little darker. You guys have been so quiet. No chatting. Does anybody have any questions? I will be happy to answer them. I love getting to engage with you guys. I'm just going sheerly into the edges of the copper panel. Well, it's not, it's copper. I'm going to keep this edge soft. And we're getting lighter back here in the background. That should be lighter than the scarf area right there. So no questions. Okay. Getting a little warmer here. Bring some of that into this part of the hair. Just getting these wispy bits in. Let's use the liner. I have really good control here. Let that just disappear into the background. Getting a little orangey note in here. A little bit right there. bit in that eye. Couldn't resist. Let's do a little more on the nose, right there. Could even try scraping through some of this. If you wanted to do that, you could. It's pretty. Oh, nope. Let me grab some of this orange. Got a little bit of hair here. Just putting in a couple little notes of color. That will play nice with the highlight area. This is a time when mark making is important. So you want to be thinking about the marks you're putting down. Let them be deliberate and purposeful. Let them help balance the composition. Can create lead-in lines at this stage of the game. I'm just looking for some interesting shapes so I can push and pull some of this thicker paint, get a little more balance to the hair here. Oh, it's pretty light down here in this area. kind of squinting at the reference, looking for the areas where these lighter notes live. Okay, what I'm thinking to do is grab a comber brush and kind of mess this up. I don't like it when things are too perfect. That's softening it. Making it more interesting. I grab some of this orange, go right in there with it. That's pretty. Get a little bit of that right here. And here. Let's put some of that behind here just a little bit. Need a little lighter note. Ooh, too light. And I'll grab a little bit of transparent oxide brown with that brush though. Take the liner, get that a little redder. And give us a couple back here. Thinking about mark making. Trying to get this little note of like an orangey pink, but it's hard to see it. It has to be, yeah, right there. Just the right value of reddish orange to work. A little wispier under here, I think. I see where I put my fingers. Let's just come through that. Messing up that line where it goes into her scarf. Okay. I'm going to bring a little bit of this yellow gold under here just to shape the nose. Kind of makes it pop forward. A little more of a rounded note here. There we go. Let's see. I feel like we could use a little more shadowing right back here. Bring a little of this hair down like that. And there. Let me get this little highlight there. And up here. I feel like this needs to be just a little simpler. If it's too busy, it steals too much attention. Well, what do we think? Am I finished? Am I finished? This feels very bright to me. That has got to come down. That's better. Just go up. Yeah, like that. I'm gonna push right here Maybe just a little more warmth right here. That's the beauty of working indirectly. We can let this dry and then work on top of it and really get some nuanced flesh tones. That's pretty. I feel like we could go really bright on the front here. Like that. And here. Just have to get the brush to kind of go parallel to the canvas so we can just plant the stroke and lay down a little bit of paint. And just come in with a little bit of this shadow. Right through there. I mean, this is not a big deal if we leave it without developing it. Could totally leave it. Maybe just a couple notes. And I just want to warm up right here. All right, so I'm going to call it for today. I'll probably noodle with it a little bit more after it dries. I'll kind of work on top of it a little bit more indirectly. But she could be done. She could be done. Just punching up the contrast in a couple spots. Remember, I want those shadows transparent. I think that's okay. All right. Well, guys, thanks for playing along. I had fun. I will post it in the Patreon post so you can see it finished. But for the most part, she's pretty much done. I think it's showing up a little more saturated on screen than what it is in real life. So definitely I will post the finished image so you can see it more accurately in color as well. Thanks for popping on with me today. See you guys next month.